I am Jason Bradford, and there's a fan film that is raging on YouTube right now. It's got over 50,000 views, and it's only been out for a couple of weeks now, less than a month. And with us today is the writer of that and the director of that, Steve Merlot. How are
Oh,
you?
thank you so much for having me. I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm great. I'm great. Let's talk
Awesome.
about your movie a little bit here. It's doing really well on YouTube and it's getting great reviews. I've seen a lot of people are doing reviews of this and reaction videos, and it's doing really, really well, especially in a world where there's all these Friday the 13th fan films, and you don't see too many of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre ones. So this is a really a standout, a fan film, independent film for horror fans, especially those of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So let's talk a little bit about why the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Why is it's simple? The original is my all-time favorite horror film. It's
Classic.
I mean, nothing against anything like Friday the 13th, and I
Oh
kind of
no.
grew up with those in the 80s and the Nightmare on Elm Street. Those were the
Hmm.
big things when I was a kid.
Yes.
And but they never really spoke to me like Texas Chainsaw Massacre did. I
Yeah.
remember the first image I saw of Leatherface when I was probably about 6 years old, way too young. And I was like, boy, that guy looks scary. What the heck's up with that guy's face?
Hmm.
And I believe it was my cousin that told me that, he shouldn't have told me this really, because it gave me nightmares. I think it was a cousin anyways. I could be wrong. It's so long ago, but told me that this is a guy that cuts his people's faces off and wears them as masks. And I just thought, whoa, to me, that was way scarier than Freddy or Jason or whatever.
Oh
Right.
yes, for sure. Yeah.
So
Totally
I don't know.
groundbreaking too.
It's one of those. It's definitely the original was a movie that had to grow on me, mind you. But
Hmm.
when I was sort of getting into it a little bit, it felt like a slow burn for me. I didn't understand a lot of the subtle, commentary on the state of the U.S. and the world, basically, really at that
Yeah.
time. So that I had to kind of learn, and that made me appreciate it a lot more. But once you did, and once you understood every little thing about even Leatherface himself, like why he wears the masks,
Yeah.
that just it easily made it my favorite horror film, and definitely to me the scariest horror film of all time. It's nothing to me, nothing really even comes close. I mean, I love Halloween. Halloween was my favorite horror film for many years. And
Yeah.
the older I got, more I saw, okay, Halloween's really good. So I never take anything away from the original Halloween. But then I saw Black Christmas when I was in my 30s. I'm like, I think I like that movie better than Halloween, and they're actually quite similar types of. I think I heard stories of John Carpenter kind of being inspired by Black Christmas when he did Halloween, but Chainsaw just it spoke to me. I guess it really ended up, especially when I was in my 20s, it really spoke to me. And then the remake came out, and I think that's where I started getting the idea to actually come up with my own Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, and ultimately that became the Sawyer Massacre. Took a long time to happen, but it happened.
Yeah. And another thing too that I want to point out here to the listeners or viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre since the original have been um, up until very recently. They've all been a continuation of the original story. I mean, we got prequels that later on in the end here, but in most franchises we get continuation of stories. We very rarely get prequels that are as mainstream as the rest. What was it about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that now Sawyer Massacre is a prequel to the original? What was it about the story of the Sawyer family and Leatherface that you thought, let's go backwards on this and tell our story as a prequel? What did
um
you feel need to be told about the family?
I almost didn't. It was more so. I think I chose the time period of 1965 based on the idea that the original was based on this terrible stuff happening in 1973. It was a very dark time for the U.S. I wanted to pick a time period that felt like where there was like a dramatic change. I wanted to make sure I was
Hmm.
capturing that kind of feel in my film, like things are really good and then things are really bad all of a sudden. And 1965 just seemed to be that time period where things were really good before that, and then 65 happened.
Yeah.
Vietnam War, US sends all of its troops to Vietnam, all that stuff. A lot of dark stuff was starting to happen. The times they were
For sure.
changing, as Bob Dylan said. That was around that time. I could be wrong on the year on that, but it's more or less that time period. So it wasn't so much that I wanted to, tell things about the Sawyer family per se, although that sort of came with it, especially with the character of Grandpa. Because
may I
just
say,
really
very
wanted to
creepy
capture
too.
that feel. What? Oh yeah.
That who the performer who played Grandpa was, his delivery was chilling.
Man,
he was great.
He's an amazing actor, and man, he really did me a favor. I think he was the last person we actually cast. I think he actually was.
Good job.
And he was
Good
a
job.
referral from William Instone, who played Rex.
Yeah, nice.
He was like the second last person to be cast. So when we got Les to play Grandpa, it was like, this guy is we couldn't get John Dugan to play Grandpa, who we originally wanted to, and he actually did a voiceover in our original promo trailers. But we got Les Best, and it almost made me forget that I wanted John Dugan to play the role. Not that it wouldn't have been awesome to have John Dugan, first time speaking as Grandpa in a feature-length Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan film. That would have been amazing, but I understood why John
Dugan, just refresh my memory and the listeners.
Sure.
John Dugan played the original Grandpa, if I'm not mistaken, on the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you'd mentioned 1965, and your film, The Sawyer Massacre, has a very vintage look and feel, almost like it was lost all these years and then found. What kind of planning went into your production value to achieve that look?
Oh, that was a lot of details. We had to find old props. So I was always reaching out to people, in Texas and in other areas, and I got lucky. The props were pretty much donated to us by one of our executive producers, Jennifer Elizabeth Roberts. She actually wanted to be involved in the actual production of the film, but she got sick, so unfortunately she couldn't come to Texas. But she was from Alabama, and so was our props guy from Alabama. So it worked out that we could get all those props delivered. The costume design, it was a little bit cheaper. It was, we had to be creative there because we just didn't have a lot of money to pull this stuff off. But
which is a mark of a true independent horror film, because a lot of that happens a lot of independent films, and the payoff is usually visually stunning with that, as far as wardrobe and props and finding creative ways to be, true and to the aesthetic of the film.
Yeah, well, hats off to the team that there was actually two actresses that played Allison and Lorraine Nicolo. I keep mispronouncing her name. Nicolo
Alicia Jade
and
Nicolo.
Yeah, nice. I thought it was Lau originally. Then I thought it was Lou, and now she's corrected me. It's actually Lo. Oh man, I keep messing that up. I'm so bad with names.
It's spelled Lauw, listeners. So that's why we're discussing the pronunciation of that.
But those two ladies did not only the costumes, but they also did the hair on everybody. It's not like absolute professional hairstyles and hats.
Stuff.
Yeah. That's the way you do it on an indie film. If you want to make a movie for under $30,000. That's what you got to do. Unfortunately, that's a lot of hats you have to wear.
A lot of hats, proudly too. Now, how did it feel when you were? Let's talk about your Indiegogo campaign a little bit here. Obviously, the fans wanted this made. You hit your goal. You went in demand. How did it feel that moment when you were in demand, knowing that you had these supporters that were wanting this movie made?
It was an amazing feeling, it's reassured that I was onto something. It definitely told me that I was definitely onto something, and it was a slow going process. I mean, I remember our first Indiegogo campaign, we only raised about around 3,500 US, so it was pretty modest, but it was my first time really going forward with an Indiegogo campaign. And our promo trailer at the time was all shot in Canada, and a lot of the actors were first time actors, and so that was a factor. So I mean, when we did our second Indiegogo campaign, it was better because we had a lot of our actors that we cast in Texas shoot footage. I was directing footage from here over Zoom, I think, Zoom or sorry, Facebook Messenger, and just chatting on there, just directing them over that. But you know, the trailer still came off very, very well, and I think that's where we started to actually have success. And then, of course, bringing on promoters like yourself and, you know, guys like Jimmy Presley and too many people to name. Actually, I should even name drop any. Shout out to all those wonderful
promoters. Yes, especially Jimmy Presley. That's the name that Jordan O'Neill had played. He's the lead.
Actually, no, that's not true. He played Jimmy, but Jimmy Presley was mentioned. You heard him mentioned by name.
I did,
as a friend of Brant's uncle.
Oh. Okay.
Jimmy Presley's picture was in the movie.
I got you. Okay.
So we had already named the lead
I heard
character.
Jimmy Presley's name, and I was just like, "Oh, I know him." So it just stuck that. Oh, that's the character's name.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
But
we had named the lead character Jimmy a long time ago.
Oh, gotcha.
But we had Jimmy Presley's picture, and we thought that would be a great touch to do his name drop at that point too.
Yeah, that's
Jimmy's
awesome.
Been an awesome guy. He also did the voice of Clyde over the walkie-talkie. He also did that voice. That was also Jimmy. So I love Jimmy. I don't hear from Jimmy as much anymore. He's been a fantastic supporter, just a great all-around guy, just loves indie horror. But you know, a lot of our promoters, I think, are the same way. So I mean,
so many.
I hate to miss any
horror,
of them, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Now, you had mentioned some of it was filmed in Canada, and I know originally you had slated to film in Canada, and part of the Indiegogo was to raise funds to travel to the United States to film in Texas. So the film was actually filmed on location in Texas. What was it like?
The film was filmed in Texas. The entire film.
That's fantastic. What was it like packing up and moving all your cast and crew and equipment to Texas? I know it had to be a lot of work and exciting all at once. What was the experience?
Well, I mean, it wasn't as much as you'd probably think. I mean, it was literally 3 people flying from Canada to Texas, and that was myself, the actor that plays Leatherface, Scotty Parkin, and actress Nika Lowe, who played Allison. We're all Canadian, and we flew from Canada to Texas, but everybody else was either in Texas or surrounding areas, and you know, so they were able to travel there fairly easily. So it wasn't. I think the hardest thing about shooting in Texas was not knowing the area very well, and especially when dealing with locations. that was difficult because, you know, you see pictures of locations that scouts are sending you, and you think that looks pretty cool in picture. Then you get to the actual location, and it's like, oh, what are we going to do here? You know, this is not matching the script, you know.
I would imagine with the location and the months that you're filming in, what months did you film your
We
movie?
filmed in March.
Okay, so how was Texas in March?
It was a lot colder than I expected. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Michigan near Detroit. So
okay.
I'm not real familiar with Texas spring, but I know that it looked like summer. I know that the cast
it was windy as hell though. If you look, you can see that the wind is blowing.
Not your
probably doesn't
friend.
Look. What's that? Sorry.
I'm sorry. I just said that's not your boom man's friend.
Oh, that's gotta be not. No. I feel sorry for the sound department in our film.
Yes.
They did a stand-up job though. Our sound recordist and boom op did an amazing job, and it was a lot of work for those guys. We shot it in 9 days, by the way. This movie was shot in 9 days.
Nice.
And that is a lot of pressure on your sound department, especially. I mean, it's a lot of pressure on everybody, but sound department, I mean, you know, they're dealing with planes flying overhead, the wind, you know, and in interiors. If you got, you know, concrete walls we had in the basement to deal with, it's like that's a lot to deal with. You know, we had a generator outside of one of the locations. We're putting sound blankets all over, trying to get rid of the sound of that generator, but it was loud. So you might be you could probably hear it a little bit in some of the scenes, but you know.
I didn't notice. I didn't notice it when I was watching
If
it.
you have
So,
headphones on, you can you have to be
okay.
listening for it, mind you.
So,
But
so if you watch it, don't wear headphones.
there you go.
Get the optimal experience here. Now we talked a little bit about behind the camera and what it was like filming. Let's talk about the movie itself. So
Sure.
from this point on, listeners, if you haven't seen the movie yet, let me mention now that the link is in the description. Go check it out. But now is a good time. You might want to pause it, watch the movie, and then come back because there's probably going to be some spoilers from this point on. So, Steve, tell us about what was your favorite aspect of filming? Which scene did you like filming the most, and what was it like with the practical effects?
Filming the end was the favorite scene to film because when we filmed the end, it was basically the end of filming. We were done filming, and it felt good to say, "Hey, we made it through." At the time, I thought the film was going to be a lot worse than it was. I felt like so much was rushed, but I had this feeling of I still did it. It might not be the most perfect film or anything like that, and it's not. I mean, you can still look at. I can look at the film and say, yeah, I wish that was better, and I wish that was better. But some of the stuff that I was like angry with myself at on set, I'm not so much anymore. They came out better than I thought they were going to come out.
Looks
So,
great.
yeah,
Yes, looks great.
I thought we did okay, but there's some minor things. There's we're picky as
I think
artists.
I think the director is always the pickiest viewer and critic when it comes to their own films here.
I thought I was going to get a lot of people on me about the actor who plays Gene, Briley Michael Bell, and you'll notice if you're looking, you'll notice in a scene after they've escaped from the basement when they're up in the upper level when they're trying to pry the window off, his shirt's not bloody anymore. That's because we filmed all that stuff before we went in the basement, and we hit it pretty well in the editing. But that I thought a lot of people would be like on me for that, and I haven't heard a single peep.
Now you will.
You guys are
now you will. Now you will.
It's out for over a month now, and nobody has said anything about that. I'm like, what?
Well, a lot of that becomes legendary because I mean, for an example, look at Pam on Friday the 13th, Part 5, the pink sweater. She's running through the rain. Are you aware of this story? She's running in the rain at the end, right after they find the dead ambulance guy, and her and Reggie split up. She's wearing the pink sweater around her shoulders, and then she's running and it's gone. And she keeps on running and it reappears, and then she's running and it's gone again, and it keeps coming and going. So now that is a very loved editing faux pas from the fans. So that kind of thing is usually accepted. Talked about for sure, yes, but definitely accepted.
I mean, it happens. No film
It
is
does.
perfect.
It does happen.
Those kinds of things do happen in multi-million-dollar productions.
They sure do.
So
absolutely,
I think people can forgive it in our film. And there's a few things in the film that aren't time period accurate. Most notably, probably the rims on that truck. The truck itself is time period, barely.
Yeah.
But the rims, there's nothing I can do about
it.
But
these are the things again that you're going to notice because it's your film. now, when people watch it,
I've heard a few people
see. I'm not. I guess I'm not really into rims. I never picked up on that.
Me neither.
I picked up the beauty of the truck and the farmhouse and the chainsaw. The chainsaw was a character in itself, which was a replica, also, wasn't it, of the original?
Nope, it was
Where
not.
Where did you get the chainsaw?
I'll tell you. I specifically chose this chainsaw as soon as I researched it online, and the reason why it's not a replica of the original is because the chainsaw that was used in the original didn't come out until 1970. So I said to myself, okay, that means I have free reigns to choose any pre-1965 chainsaw I want, because it wouldn't make sense for them to have that same chainsaw in this movie. So I went looking online, and I came across the one that we have in our film, and I fell in love with it, and it just looks amazing. It
does. It's its own character.
It is
a beast.
It's probably 2 or 3 times heavier than a regular chainsaw. It's very dangerous. We hardly ever had it running, and that's another thing we get knocked for a little bit, is that the chainsaw if you see it running at all in the entire film. I'm not even sure if we did. We did have it running on set a few times, but did we actually have it running in any shots? I'm not 100% sure, but there's a good chance we didn't. You know, I know that all the sound you hear from the chainsaw, that's all done in post. That was all sound design. But it was so dangerous. It was a very, very, very dangerous chainsaw.
Oh, I bet it looked very menacing. Did that chainsaw go out as a perk? Did somebody get that with the Indiegogo campaign?
Oh, the wonderful Bobby
one
High
lucky
got
person
that.
got Bobby. I love Bobby.
High. We love Bobby.
Bobby High
he's obviously a collector, that Bobby High. I love that guy though.
He is. He's a great guy. I'm a master mask maker, and he has bought several of my masks. And
cool.
He claims to love every one of them. He bought the only actual light up Savini mask that I ever made.
Very cool.
And I don't know if he knows this, but Bobby, if you're listening, I burnt just about every fucking finger on my hand making your mask. So with hot glue, by the way, pulled the skin right off. But anyway, let's talk about the end of your movie and the baby crying. I know that's a question that you get asked a lot. What is that? What does it mean? So what is that? What does it mean?
Do you have any theories yourself there, Jason?
I was thinking you were setting up for maybe a sequel. Okay, this is the first thing that came to my mind was Jennifer Banko's character from Leatherface.
That's not bad. That's not a
maybe
bad
this
theory.
was going to be her character and setting up for that. That was the first thing that came to my mind.
So where did she come from though?
Now, see that I don't know. That's up to the script, the screenplay, whoever writes the screenplay. But no, I thought maybe that it was a cry what was to happen.
Okay.
Maybe, because she didn't get away. Again, like I said, spoilers here. She doesn't get away, not on screen anyway. So there's that possibility that perhaps she could be captive, not killed, but not a happy ending either. Right? Yes, we're talking. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, we are. She may not have been killed. She may have been taken hostage, captive, whatever, and not had her happy ending. And a little later on, she may have. Yeah,
it's definitely not a wrong theory. That's for sure. In fact, that kind of leans towards what it is. I would think. You hear Grandpa at the dinner table say, "You're a strong one. You're going to save our family." All this stuff, because hey, one question I keep hearing in a lot of people talking about the original movie is, where's all the women in this family?
Right.
So in a sense, I'm kind of answering this a little bit with that ending and through some of the earlier context in the film that's very, very subtly delivered. There's a conversation between Rex and Drayton, and they're talking about something, but what are they talking about? They're saying the last one didn't make it just 5 months in. What does that mean? Could it mean that the last woman they had captured and impregnated
didn't make
just
it,
died, and the baby's gone now, and they got it? That's what it intended to be. But again, you can build your own theories. I like it when people can build their own theories.
So I feel like my theory was on the right path, not necessarily Banko's character, but
not necessarily. Who's to say it isn't though?
Time-wise, exactly. Or at least an older sister we don't know about, because time-wise, I think it would. I think she would be born a little bit after 65, but
So my theory would have been that the Sawyer family was always inbreeding until the last Sawyer female died, and and unfortunately that the hitchhiker would have been like the last Sawyer, and they don't want to let their family tree die, so they have to outsource.
Now let me ask you this: what would you do if you were ever face to face with something supernatural, whether it be demonic or alien from another planet, or just something that was definitely not of this world? How would you react?
Oh, I'd probably get the hell out of there. If it, I don't know. I'd probably just run my ass. I don't know. Maybe I would try to communicate with it, but if it didn't communicate back with me very quickly, I'd bolt.
Steve, thank you again for making such a great fan film of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Sawyer Massacre, and I hope to chat with you again soon. Take care and have a great evening.
Well, thanks for having me, Jason.
It's been a pleasure.
Here we are, boys. My uncle's cabin.
Not bad, Brant. What about AC, though?
How do you think he's doing?
Jimmy really needs this weekend, man.
So, Jimmy, what's this soul searching you're doing?
That's something personal happened to me a few months back.
Jimmy, I'm so sorry.
We got ourselves a little setback.
Just leave me out of it.
Do you have any food here?
You guys are hungry, aren't you?
Why are you selling your store?
You're gonna have to go see my grandpa.
Where is he?
Not far. He's got everything you need.
Girls, stay close.
This is the place.
Is this somebody's too? Adeline, put that down.
Brant, is that you?
This is my house.
Hey, what are you doing now?
Let's keep on. We have to go.
What do you want?
You're very strong. You won't die. Yet. Get away from her.
I need you to save your strength, okay? I'm not gonna let anything happen to you, Allie.